October 1962, the world looked normal. People went to work. Children went to school. Radios played music. But behind the scenes, humanity was standing closer to nuclear destruction than at any other moment in history. For 13 terrifying days, one wrong decision could have ended civilization. This was the Cuban Missile Crisis. On October 14, 1962, an American U-2 spy plane flew high above the island nation of Cuba. Its cameras captured something shocking: long missile launch sites under construction. These were not ordinary weapons. They were Soviet nuclear missiles, powerful enough to destroy entire American cities within minutes. When the photographs reached the White House, President John F. Kennedy immediately understood the danger. If the missiles became operational, millions of lives would be at risk. The United States suddenly faced a terrifying question. Should they strike first or risk nuclear war? Kennedy gathered a small group of advisors in a secret emergency meeting. The discussions were tense, emotional, and filled with fear. Some generals demanded immediate airstrikes on Cuba, insisting that destroying the missiles quickly was the only safe option. Others warned that bombing Cuba could trigger a Soviet retaliation, possibly nuclear. Every option carried the possibility of World War III. Kennedy knew that a single mistake could lead to the deaths of hundreds of millions of people. So instead of immediate attack, he chose a risky middle path, a naval blockade around Cuba to stop additional Soviet missiles from arriving. The world did not yet know what was happening, but the countdown had already begun. Across the world, Soviet leader Nikita Khrushchev received news of the American blockade. To him, the U.S. move looked like an act of aggression. Soviet ships carrying military equipment were already sailing toward Cuba. If American naval forces tried to stop them, armed confrontation could erupt instantly. Both sides prepared nuclear forces. Missile crews were placed on high alert. Strategic bombers were readied for launch. For the first time in history, humanity stood at the edge of global nuclear war. Meanwhile, Cuban leader Fidel Castro believed an American invasion was imminent. Cuban troops mobilized across the island. Anti-aircraft guns were prepared. Soldiers waited in trenches, expecting war at any moment. Ordinary citizens in many countries had no idea how close the world was to destruction. But inside government war rooms, the atmosphere was filled with tension, sleepless nights, and constant fear. Every hour mattered. Every message mattered. Every misunderstanding could trigger catastrophe. On October 27th, the crisis reached its most dangerous point. An American U-2 spy plane was shot down over Cuba, killing the pilot. Military leaders demanded immediate retaliation. Pressure on President Kennedy grew intense. At nearly the same time, U.S. naval forces detected a Soviet submarine near the blockade line. Unknown to the Americans, the submarine carried a nuclear torpedo. Under extreme stress and believing war might already have started, the submarine crew prepared to launch the weapon. Only one officer's refusal to approve the launch prevented what could have been the first nuclear explosion of World War III. History came terrifyingly close to ending that day, and most of the world never even knew. Behind closed doors, urgent secret communications moved between Washington and Moscow. Messages were sent, rewritten, and sent again as both sides searched for a way to step back without appearing weak. Finally, a compromise began to take shape. The Soviet Union would remove its nuclear missiles from Cuba. In return, the United States secretly agreed to remove its own nuclear missiles from Turkey and publicly promised not to invade Cuba. The solution required careful diplomacy, patience, and the willingness of both leaders to choose restraint over pride. On October 28, 1962, the announcement came: the Soviet Union would dismantle the missile sites. The crisis was over. People around the world continued their daily lives, many never realizing how close they had come to nuclear devastation. But inside government circles, the lesson was unforgettable. Modern war could destroy humanity in hours, not years. After the crisis, both nations took steps to prevent such a disaster from happening again, including establishing direct communication lines between leaders, the famous hotline, connecting Washington and Moscow. The Cuban Missile Crisis was not just a political confrontation. It was a moment when human judgment, fear, ego, and courage all collided at once. For 13 days, the survival of civilization depended on a handful of decisions made in quiet rooms by leaders who understood the weight of history pressing on them. The world survived, not because war was impossible, but because, at the final moment, leaders on both sides chose negotiation instead of destruction. And perhaps the most chilling truth is this: humanity did not step back from the edge because technology saved it. It stepped back because a few individuals decided not to press the button.